Hello everybody, let's do end of Monday update. Really bullish session this time. Today you can see pre-market. If you watch my video, I told you around 4:30 a.m. Eastern, it came to buy zone. This indicator, green lines are buy zones, red lines are sell zone. And look at the bounce we got from there, right? So look at this bounce, 2.68% on Nasdaq, S&P 500. The bounce was from here almost to 1.87%. All right, so massive bounce. And one of the reasons why S&P 500 bounce and then entire stock market bounce is because of this gap on SPY. You can see this gap here. Let's start with fixing these gaps and seeing how I analyze this market. You can see this gap was here, 1 hour gap. This gap was uh, on this day 2nd of January gap down, all right? So people who are my regular subscribers, they know the gaps do they get filled, and I was telling everybody that this gap will be filled one day, and then we fill this gap, so we can delete this nicely here. And then if you watch my video, I was saying we are on support, okay? We broke out support, came back testing support, and again now we are bouncing, all right? Massive candle and right on support. And if I zoom in on 1 hour chart, you can see what happened here. Let me zoom in and see if there was a gap or this gap is filled. But if I want to be very specific, you can see a little bit of gap is left here. All right, we had a gap up. I'm going into a lot of details. So there's a gap left today's session around 468, and this gap will be filled. And this gap is more visible on triple Qs, which is Nasdaq. You can see easy gap up. So gap is left here, all right? And then triple Qs, this gap is still not filled. So there is a gap on the top marked with yellow, gap at the bottom marked with green. Both gaps will filled, okay? Both gaps will definitely be filled. Now, I don't know if we're gonna go straight. So the thing which we don't know is, are we gonna go fill this gap first and then come back to fill this gap? Or are we going first from here to down and then gonna go up and fill this gap, all right? We don't know, okay? And then there's also this another gap. This also will be filled at some point. So there are two scenarios and we are in the middle. So I do nothing in the middle. I just wait and see. If we go fill this gap, good, we're gonna short it. And then if we come fill this gap, good, then we're gonna start buying it, all right? So that's the scenario here. Tesla, there's still this gap, still not filled, and it's still on this downtrend. If I go to daily chart, you can see here we broke out, now went back, back testing. Now if we reject here, we can still come back and fill this gap around 224. So I'm out of all my positions. I'm on cash. So I had Apple, Tesla, Fungu, and SOXL. I've sold them all, and I'm just sitting on cash because market right now, I don't know where it's which way it's gonna go. So sometimes doing nothing is the best thing too. So okay, let's go to Apple 1 hour chart. Same thing on Apple, gap up, all right. So there's another gap created using, you see this gap here. I deleted it this morning, but you can see this gap was filled. So 183, there was a gap. Now there's another gap around 191. So again, there are two gaps created here. Netflix coming to close this gap on 1 hour chart around 485. Microsoft again gap up, all right, so it's created another gap. You can see all these big stocks are creating a gap, and that's giving you a hint. The hint is this gap will be filled. Do not get too bullish, okay? This stock will come back. These stocks will come back to fill this gap. So this Meta fill this gap, so I'm going to delete this. There's a gap here around 362 on Meta. Amazon also gap up and running, so this gap will also be filled. Snowflakes gap up again. Now there's another gap around 198. Maybe it will fill that and then come down. NVIDIA also gap up, all right? And there's another gap down here. So just make it light green. You can see two gaps, all right? Making a new all-time high with two gaps below. Okay, just be careful. AMD also came very close to filling this gap. Still not filled. Maybe it will fill it fully tomorrow and then come back. It looks like so. Dow Jones. No gaps today. IWM, no gaps today. Gold miners, and Newmont mine, no gaps. GDX, also no gaps. Let's look at sectors. XLK also gap up. Okay, so this gap is left. XLE also going towards gap fill, so gap down. So there's massive gap because oil was selling. Healthcare just keep going higher. Uh, Utility sector. Okay, this gap is filled. You can see how nicely these gaps are your hints. Okay, these gaps are your hints, and they're telling you how nicely they will be filled. Industrial sector also has this gap. Real estate sector going towards the other gap around 40 bucks. Financials new highs. Yeah, it looks like new high. No gaps. And KRE, this gap was filled already, so just holding nicely here. Shopify also had a gap up, and you can see this gap down. Now it's filled fully, so you can delete this so there are no gaps on Shopify as well. Uh, Anyhow, we can do the same analysis on every stock. Boeing, massive downgrade, something to do with their planes, and now stock sold off heavily. So you can see how many gaps it has created. These gaps will be filled one day. We just don't know which day. Okay. This gap was filled, so I can delete this. And also there's another gap here. So this is the way you can analyze a market. You can mark gaps, tops and bottoms, just to see how things are. And you can see Boeing can still come here all the way down to 197. All right, so let's do analysis on a daily chart. Let's go to daily chart and let's hide this indicator. Let's try to bring in moving averages and see how things are doing. Okay, so S&P 500 I talked about, it's bouncing from the supports. I can delete this now. Now just remember it's above this all moving averages actually. But let's see, is it gonna reject here and gonna start filling some of these gaps, or it can still go higher on this trend line. You can see this white trend line. It can still go back test it, make a new all-time high, back test it, and then come back. All right, so let's see. Let's see. Right now, if it makes a new high, S&P 500 is going to be divergent high on RSI because RSI is showing lower momentum, so it's going to be divergent high, and that's going to be an indication to be careful. Triple Q's Nasdaq going towards. So now, like I said, in the middle facing, is it going to be a lower high before it comes down, or is it going to go fill this gap? So right now, right on resistance. So you take profits on resistance and you wait for next move. So uh, not sure here what's going to happen next. Dow Jones, I was showing new high. Maybe it's going to go a little bit more higher, make a new high. If it does that, then it's going to be a divergent high on RSI. So looking for that and then sell off. IWM, also looking for this next gap. Maybe it will go a little bit more higher, then go down. So that's what my projection is. All right, so VIX 2% down, got rejected on this basically daily 50 SMA. That's okay. And then did not find support here. So let's see if if VIX goes a little bit more down here around this area, around 1250 and below, is going to find support again. So VIX is still making higher highs, higher low, right? So this high, which was on Friday, is higher than this high, and this could be still higher low. And if it bounces from here, that's going to be bearish for stock market. Okay, so because VIX is inverse correlated to stock market, so keep an eye on that. Crude oil now down, but again coming very close to the support here. All right. So if crude oil can find some buyers here, that will be really good. It can, however, come a little bit more down if they want, but still, this could be still. This is a higher low, but it's still a higher high compared to this high. So let's see if it comes breaks below this 69.45. That's bearish, but this is a big demand area. You can see here how much chop we had. So it can still chop around here before it can bounce. All right, so keep that in mind. Gold, again, you can see very nicely exactly what I was predicting. So came in very, very close to the support around 2000. So still did not touch it. Can still go a bit lower and still can find buyer, or this could be it. Okay, so still making higher highs, higher lows, and I think gold should pick up very soon. Looking for maybe slightly more downwards pressure. If not, then it's going to be higher. But let's see. I'm looking for maybe new low or just to go in this box around 2000 before buyers can jump in. Silver, the reason is silver also, you can see still did not touch this white trend line. So hoping for a little bit more lower to touch this trend line before it can bounce. So looking for silver to come a little bit more lower, around 2.77% before it can bounce. Natural gas, very was down 7%, and look at this candle, this daily candle today. You can see was down, rejected from this 50 daily SMA down, and then buyers stepped in and bought natural gas, which was pretty interesting for me. But again, I'm looking for some rejection here and looking for lower prices, and this is my projection. We'll see how it goes, right? It's right. You can see this red line was acting as 50 daily SMA as support, and now will it act as resistance? We will see. We will see. Dollar DXY got rejected here. Now, if dollar gets rejected, and if it comes in this green area, which is very close now, it's going to find buyers here, guys. It's going to find buyers here, and then it's going to pump. That's going to be bearish for gold and Bitcoin. So let's see. Keep an eye on dollar. It's at a critical stage right now. Bitcoin new highs. Okay, good, good, but still a divergent high. See new highs, still higher low on RSI. You can see here. So don't celebrate yet. If Bitcoin can keep pumping and remove these divergences, then I will be bullish. But for now, just be very careful, okay? Just be very careful. It can still go reject from here and go all the way down. So just be careful here. Ethereum also still did not make a new high. But again, even if it makes, it's going to be divergent high. Let's go to look at futures of Bitcoin. BTC, let's go to 1 hour chart and let me hide this indicator. Are there any gaps here? No, there are no gaps here. So, and on Ethereum also, no gaps here. That's okay. So go to daily chart, still divergences here on Bitcoin futures as well. You can see here, and even on Ethereum, you can see here, looking for some divergences here as well. All right. So just be a bit careful here. This is not the time to be bull. This time to be taking profits, in my opinion. Um, Toronto Stock Exchange, yeah, it's doing what I thought. So you can see it bottomed, bouncing now. Now, let's see how long it can bounce. Made a new high or equal high. Let me actually delete this. So, still a little bit of divergence. Let's see. Not interested right now. Hang Seng Index came very close to the filling this gap. Let's try to see if it really filled it or still there's a gap. So let's zoom in this. This is China. So this gap is still here. Yep. And still did not touch it. So I'm looking for going back to daily, looking for it to go a little bit more lower, although it's pumping pre-market, looking for it to reject and then fill this gap. And that will be good buy area, okay? So looking for a little bit more lower, around 16,170 to fill this gap. Bond market, a little bit of bounce. Um, Finding support on this green, sorry, light blue and dark blue line, 200 SMA and EMA. So let's see, looking for a little bit more lower prices. This cycle low is coming 19th of Jan, so looking for a little bit more lower prices and then bounce. Commodities, copper is in the buy zone and it's bought, bouncing. Palladium in the buy zone. Soybeans, new low, that's not good, but still divergence on soybeans. So yeah, still going lower on a divergence. So just remember, wait for this trend line to break before you can get bullish again because it can keep going lower on this trend line, okay? So just be mindful of that. But there are some gaps here, these yellow lines. It can one day just bounce. Wheat is in the buy zone, okay, finding support on this 50 SMA, so that's good. Corn also made a new low, but still there's divergence, okay? It keeps going lower on divergence, so I'm not sure why it keeps going down. Multi-year low, I don't know what's going on, something to do with oil. But again, you can see this red line, 50 daily SMA. Wait for it to break above that, all right? Uh, don't be bullish until then. Sugar finally bouncing. Did I see any divergence? Still do not see a divergence here. So it will be good if sugar can go a little bit lower uh, and then bounce, but we'll see. Still a high low. Let's see if it does that. Tesla, like I said, got rejected on this trend line. Okay, now facing resistance on this 50 EMA yellow line. It can still reject here and then go down, fill this gap around 224. If that happens, that's a buy target. Now there is a gap here around 246 as well. So let's see. It needs to break this downward trend line to be bullish again. Until that happens, be very careful. Apple again filled a couple of one gap only. It was here around 183, like I showed you in the beginning. Is it gonna go now? Is it gonna go fill this gap first, or is it gonna come down, fill this gap? I don't know. So I'm just neutral right now on Apple. Netflix very close to filling this gap around 485, but it's in massive resistance area. So let's see. There's also a gap around 509, so keep that in mind. Microsoft again gap up today. If I zoom in, gap up. So this gap will also be filled at some point. So let's see how long we go higher before we come down to fill this gap. Let's see. Google also gap up, same story. Right on this red line, which is 10 moving average. Is it going to reject here and fill this gap? I don't know. Meta coming close to very close to filling this gap around 362. So like I said, so looks like it's going there. So it's going to probably do it tomorrow. Let's see. Let's see if it does it tomorrow. Amazon gap up again, right near resistance. Sorry, give me a second, guys. Uh, give me a second. Sorry, sorry, guys. Okay. Yeah. So it can still reject here and then fill this gap here. So, sorry, guys. Snowflakes, same story, gap up. There's also a gap here on 198. Let's see which of these gaps get filled first. Nvidia also gap up, new high. Let's see. Still a divergent high, all right? But if Nvidia keep going higher, then this gap will be burnt. I mean, this divergence will be built and it's going to be like this. So let's see if Nvidia can go high. The only thing which is worried me is this gap up. So let's see, AMD also gap up. Still very close to this gap. 1 hour chart is showing it's not filled, I think. So maybe it will go a little bit higher, fill this gap, and then come down. Newmont Mine, biggest coal miner on this support trend line. So holding it nicely here on this support trend line. If I can put something like this or like this, nothing, not a clean chart. Gold miner GDX had a gap down but filled it gap. Coming very close to the support, so if it goes a little bit more lower, then it's going to be nicely on the support trend line. So keep an eye on that. XLK also gap up. You can see here. So I'm going to delete these arrows. So it's right in the middle. Top gap, bottom gap, you choose which one is going to be filled. XLE looks like it wants to go fill this gap. That's our first target now. Healthcare, XLV, massive bounce, keeps going higher. Massive bounce, which is good. So any dips look to buy, no divergence, okay? Very overbought short term. You can see light green background, very overbought. Utility sector also nicely on this trend line, so look to buy the dips. Also above 200 EMA and SMA, so which is good sign. Industrial sector also looking like it wants to fill this gap around 112. Real estate sector looks like it wants to fill this gap around 40.29. Financials also making a new high, but again, this is also a divergent high, so just be a bit very careful. New highs on lower momentum on RSI. KRE also looking okay. Maybe it's going higher. All right. Shopify filled a couple of gaps, but there's a gap up. Probably it's gonna do nothing until earnings time. So let's see. This is a big, massive gap. So let's see. It's usually gaps do get filled. We don't know when it's gonna be filled. Okay. Nike also trying its best, consolidating. Boeing, massive gap down, finding support on this 50 daily SMA line. This massive gap here, which is bothering me. So let's see. Let's see. Is it gonna come all the way down? But that's a big move. So I'm not sure. It's just a speculation. Walmart trying its best, got rejected on this 50 daily SMA. Let's see, is it gonna reject here and fill this bottom gap, or is it gonna go higher? We don't know. Uh, let's see anything else interesting. UNH went down and filled this. Somebody told me Moderna mRNA. Let's see, Moderna. How was it doing? Oh, massive pump, 3.89%. Wow, good. Pfizer also doing okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Alibaba reject got bought, and nothing else. Nothing else. Bank of America, nothing interesting. And then CNQ, biggest oil miner. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on. So now on CNQ, let me hide this chart. Let's get rid of this. Now there's a gap up and there's a gap down. So let's see. Let's see. I'm looking for a little bit more. I don't know. It's in the middle. So let's see. No indication here. XOM also there's a gap higher. So let's see. Not sure. I think it's most likely will do whatever oil will do. So we have to keep an eye on oil, crude oil. So if it gets lower, then all these oil miners should go lower. So I'll keep an eye on that. Okay, let's see if there's anybody else is online. Nobody's online. Okay, guys, that's it for today, and